Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We are going to be talking about Comic Cons and teens, and we are really glad that you have joined us.
Hi, I'm Christina Taylor. I'm one of the librarians at Round Rock High School in Round Rock, Texas. And my co-librarian and I, Sara Pavone, are the hosts for the Central Texas Teen and Kids Comic Con.
And I'm Sara Pavone. I'm the other half of the Round Rock High School library team. So my co-librarian is Christina Taylor. And as she said, we've been hosting the Central Texas Teen and Kids Comic Con for 3 years now.
Hi, I'm Barbie Love. I'm part of the team that's put together the BrazCon Comic Convention. I work in Alvin ISD. I'm the librarian at Rodeo Palms Junior High.
And I'm Stephanie Williamson. I'm your moderator and one of the guests, I guess. And I'm the Children's Services Coordinator for Brazoria County Library System, hence the name BrazCon for Brazoria County. And we've done BrazCon for 5 years. This is our 5th year. So let's talk a little bit about why Comic Cons are important to kids. Christina, would you and Sara like to begin?
Sure. I can't remember the exact statistic at this moment, but recently we've seen some documentation that graphic novels and manga are largely driving circulation in libraries. And so although they are often bringing people into our doors, they are still not recognized as real literature or real reading in the larger community. And so that ends up being a community that is underserved and underrepresented. And they often don't feel that they are targeted in traditional programming, and they may not even feel welcome coming through your doors, even though they are coming in, driving our circulation. And so Comic Cons are a fantastic way to acknowledge that readership, that population, and to embrace them and that they feel welcomed and realize that we do see them. We do recognize them. We recognize the value. We recognize what they add to our communities. And we want them to feel welcomed, and that we want to celebrate with them and all of the joys that draw them to this reading.
I think it's also really important for people to understand that comics and graphic novels are real reading and how they can support struggling readers as well. And so I feel like we also use our Comic-Con as a way to educate the public on the importance and the uses that graphics and novels and comics can be used for.
Hey, Barbie, did you want to start this part off, or?
Sure. Okay, so I think it's really important to have that inclusion because there's not a lot around here that deals with that kind of thing. Like you were saying, around in our area too, the most we have is the Comic Palooza in Houston, which is amazing, but it's expensive, and it takes to be able to get down there and to be able to go to it. And so we miss out on those kids and getting them excited about something and getting them included and making them feel welcome, like you said. And I think that's a super huge important part, especially at this age, because teens, we could easily lose them. We could easily lose their interest, and they can go off on the wrong path, and we don't want that. So anything we can do to pull them back in and to get them interested in something that's, like books, wholesome, something that's good, something that's, helpful. That's just, to me, that's well worth it.
So, and when we first came up with the idea of having our Comic Con, we did it because we wanted to reach out to those underserved kids. So teens, mainly preteens and teens, because, they were not coming through our doors as we had hoped that they would be. And we wanted to make sure that they understood how important we thought that novels and manga was, because we knew that was their love. So that's one of the reasons that we started this, is to get those kids into the library, to have them feel like we valued them and we valued their reading material. So that's why. Okay, so Christina and Sara, would you like to tell us a little bit about your con?
Sure. So as I said, we've done our Comic-Con for 3 years now. We started off the first year we were super excited to have about 1,000 people in attendance. And then it's grown steadily each year. Last year, we actually had nearly 5,000 attendees, and we had 41 presenters and 43 vendors at our con. So, and we do hold it at our high school. So it's held at Round Rock High School, which is a huge school. That's one thing we always try to make sure people understand. When we say we hold it at our school holds almost 4,000 students. So it's a large campus and a large space.
Our physical space covers probably a city block. And so we have room to spread out, although we try and hold it near one end of campus, but we literally do have just a very big venue at our, I guess, beck and call.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So Barbie, would you like to start us off about BrazCon?
So basically, we've been running it. We have vendors, we have authors, we have panelists, we have all kinds of different options for the kids. We spread it out in different genres, different interests, different likes, but we do have sometimes a main focus. Like I know the year before we had anime focus. So there was that. We had last year, I believe, I want to say we had about 95 vendors. And that includes food vendors, authors, and regular vendors. So and we spread out. We also go to our high schools. We've been at all three different high schools except for Alvin. We've been both at Manville and Manville and Shadow Creek High School. So we both have hosted. So they're rather large schools as well. So we spread out throughout the school, and so that's.
Okay, so we started out our first year at a junior high, and we had about 2,000 kids in attendance, and then we've had well over 6,000 kids at our largest, which was kind of crazy. We do program for the preteens to teens, so about ages 10 to 18, but we welcome families as well, and we will have whole families participate, sometimes even dressing up and doing cosplay together, and that's really a lot of fun. Our con is just one day. We have had lots of people ask, can you do it 2 days? No, I could not survive 2 days. So 1 day is enough, and we usually run it from 9 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon, but we have had the ability to set up the day before. So we set everything up the day before. We have our con, we take everything down before we leave the school. And it is always, as Barbie said, at a school. So that way we have plenty of parking and plenty of space to spread out. Okay, so we'd like to know how we...
I was just going to say, you made a really good point, and I want to point that out. You said that doing more than 1 day is just not really... that's a lot of work. So keeping it to 1 day, and also the hours that you guys do, very similar to ours. We found that we do ours from 10 to 3:30, but we have to set up the day of. So I think it depends on what kind of access you have to the facilities as to your hours that you set.
Right. Yeah, and it is very important, and that has really saved us being able to get in. And usually we go in after school is out for the day, like 4, and we're there until, I don't know, 10, 11, 11:30 that night. But then we arrive fresh, everything's set up, and the next morning, and it's good to go. And we always have relied on student volunteers to help us with those setups. And our student council members from the area get their volunteer hours in, and so that they really do save us. So that's really a good thing. Okay, so our question next is, how do you focus your con? How do you choose the direction your con is going to go?
For Central Texas Teen Comic-Con, we've really kind of taken a generalist approach, is that we decided to focus obviously on school-age children, and we do K through 12. But we have not had, I know you guys said that you had like an anime focus 1 year. And so we haven't been as focused in that. What we have decided to do is that we wanted to make sure that the programming, the panels, the sessions, all were very much tied to literature. And we've kept the pop culture elements to activities and vendors, but we very much wanted to, I mean, we're librarians. We want to make sure that we are promoting the written word and that we're promoting literacy in everything that we do. But beyond that, our focus has largely been kind of trying to keep it local as much as possible, as much as promoting local talent. We have a huge talent pool here in Austin of local and indie creators. And so we've been reaching out to that community. I know I can see by Sara's face, she has additional things to add.
No, I think you pretty much hit most of it, that we really do. We've worked very hard to keep it focused on literature. And we do have some activities that that are pop culture based. Like we have a Star Wars group that comes in and does, teaches them fighting with lightsabers, and we have some of our vendors are more pop culture focused, but for our panels, we've really tried to keep it geared towards literature.
Okay, so I'll take the beginning of this. So for our Comic-Con, for BrazCon, the first year it was like open in general, so we didn't really have a specific focus, but then we started kind of focusing in on our themes. And so the next one was kind of fandom, just general fandom. Then we went to anime, which was a lot of fun. The last one we held in person was music. So we had a Harry Potter style band come in. So that was a lot of fun. And, we had a DJ playing music and doing different kinds of games and things. So it was really a lot of fun. And this year we had we just finished it. It was February 20th. It was online. So, it was very different, but we focus on graphic novels this time. So, we use current trends and interest surveys, questionnaires, all kinds of different ways to find that focus and get what kids are interested in. Barbie, would you like to expand on that a bit?
Sure. We also have panels. So for the interest-wise, we have panels. We have librarians from the school, from the districts who get to work with kids one-on-one every day, and then librarians from Brazoria County, of course. And so we kind of sit there and talk, and we use their suggestions and use just basically that one year, there's so many suggestions about anime that we decided that it was a good lean. So that's basically how it's been happening in the past.
So one other thing that I need to remind everyone is that we are a county library system. So we cover, all things pop culture, DVDs, of course, the written word, right? So we include all those different things to bring all of that in and together. And that makes it, more broad and I think interesting to the kids. Okay, our next question is, where do you begin when you start with this kind of thing? Where do you begin when developing a library Comic-Con?
I think that was the scariest question for us the first time. It's overwhelming, and where do you begin? But we've actually put together a handout that we uploaded, and it's called it's how to plan a Comic-Con, and it's step-by-step, month-by-month guide to how to actually do this. We kind of documented as we went. The second year, the first year we were so overwhelmed we didn't really document anything. But the second year we started documenting. And so I think for us, obviously the first thing I think you need to do is pick your audience. And then for us, as the next most important thing was finding a location and figuring out what date that location was available. Because for us, we're on a very limited budget, and so that's why we use the school. And schools get used for many, many things. So trying to find a date that the facility was available was kind of one of the first things we had to do.
piggybacking on Sarah's comment, as well as Stephanie's statement earlier about the difference being a county library, I think that's huge when you start talking about picking your audience. We were coming at it from the perspective that we are school librarians and that our audience had access not just to our resources, but also the public library. They could go to these different venues for different types of programming. And so we wanted to come at it from that focus. Whereas as a county library, I mentioned exactly, you have a much broader audience that is used to looking for specific services. And so that's going to affect the filter in which you approach it. So thinking about your audience in terms of your patrons and your users, and then as Sara said, then picking your venue. And that's going to help you a lot with your focus. I'm a person who often suffers from overchoice. And so when we first looked at it, I was like, oh, I can't even wrap my mind around that. But once we nailed down some things that were no longer, they felt less nebulous. You know, the venue was huge because you knew is that if we're holding it here, our planning needs to scale for this. Whatever it is we plan to put on, it has to be able to be housed within this physical space. These are the limits of our capacity. So that's going to limit how big we dream. And I know that sounds terrible, but sometimes you need to put limits on it because otherwise you're just like, where do I even begin attacking? You know, how do I take the fork to the elephant? I don't even know where the edges of it are.
So I think another way that to begin your own Comic Con is to do research at other cons. So I know Barbie has gone to several. Barbie, where have you done your research?
Exactly, several different ones. I've been to FanFest, I've been to Comic Palooza, so different ones like that, different Comic Paloozas, so different ones, and just kind of gotten ideas from there, especially vendors.
Yeah. So, and I've gone to an anime con in Dallas. I've been to, what is it? Harry Potter con that's up in, I can't remember the name of it. But LeakyCon that was held in Dallas, and that was a lot of fun. I've also been to AlamoCon and then several of the Houston area cons. So I think going to cons is a great way to get your ideas. It's a great way to see what will work for you and what won't work for you. And, you know, it kind of opens your mind to the possibilities. But again, just like they said, you have to kind of set limits and understand and realize what won't work, because there are some things that won't work.
If you're not able to actually attend a con physically, I recommend also at least going to look at the event website and look at the lineup, look at their programming, start looking for patterns. So you can think about, for those who have attended a con other than just yours, these are the kind of things they expect. And so that will also help mold your idea of what it's going to look like.
Absolutely. Okay, so once you have narrowed down your how to start, how can you get your local community to chip in and help out? Any ideas?
We were very lucky our very first year, and that we were able to make, among other things that we did, we were able to make a personal connection with one of our local creators. Drew Edwards, author of Halloween Man, is here in Austin. We know him personally, have grown closer to him over the years, but the first year he was instrumental in our programming, because one of the things he did is he opened the door to us and let us know there's a wealth of local creators that we maybe just don't know about. Often they are holding positions doing other things in addition to this. And so you may only know them by this title, but he was like, these are people you can go to. These are communities you can tap into and start building your talent pool and reaching out.
I think your community can also be an invaluable resource for getting volunteers and sponsors, and for your fundraising, because a lot of times there are a lot of community members out there that really want to be involved and they want to help. And so if you give them the opportunity to volunteer or sponsor, and we started our our first year, I think we started our sponsorships at $30 because we wanted to make it to where individuals could sponsor a session if they wanted to. And so it really gives them an opportunity to interact and to cooperate with you.
Oh, sorry. Also, I just remembered this as well. Sorry. Reach out to your local comic book shops. They are huge. They know people. They know how to put you in touch with people. And so never, ever, ever overlook them. Reach out to your local comic book shops. Again, we've formed some partnerships there and just found all the ways in which our lives intersect and what we can do to help promote each other.
I think also building a team or a committee is really important because you never know what they're going to bring to the table. Like I know we have tons of librarians and they all have different experiences, different people they know, different people they can bring into and say, hey, this person's really interested, let's talk to them. And so that's been really helpful, I think, for us too. And I believe ask, just go to local people, even big things like Walmart and HEB and they have donations, they have things that they do for this. And so what's the worst they can say? No. So just get out there and talk.
So you also can work with your school district. So Barbie is in one of our local county school districts. So we worked very closely with Alvin ISD for a number of years, and they were very helpful. We also have worked with a group called Communities in Schools, which is an after-school group that has really helped us a lot in all of our different cons. So they're great. Don't overlook public libraries. If you're a school librarian, don't overlook public libraries because they can also be your friend and very helpful in getting, knowing different people and getting involved. But there's also like city councilmen, I guess, city council persons, parks and recreation area groups from your local city or town. Local politicians love these kinds of things. We had one of our local politicians, two of them actually went together and sponsored the Batmobile to come. So that was a lot of fun. Chambers of Commerce can step in and help you out. The local police department, sheriff's department, your school district police department. So all of these groups, will like to lend a hand and get out and meet the kids and their families. So I think becoming a community event is really beneficial to you and to your group.
Also, okay. I think there were a couple of groups that our first year we inadvertently kind of forgot to reach out to, and I've always made sure to include them since then, is don't forget to look for private schools and homeschooling groups, because those students aren't often a part of large community events, but they're all out there, and it's another group of people to serve. So
excellent, thank you. Okay, so the next question is, what are the biggest challenges at the onset of this process? What did you have to overcome to make it happen?
Christina, you take this.
For me, the biggest challenge was really just wrapping my head around the magnitude of the task we were undertaking. I literally spent probably a good portion of the first year paralyzed with fear as to what to do. Sara and I have worked together for several years at that point, and I guess it'd been 5 years at that point. And we'd gotten very good at a division of labor and figuring out how to support each other and kind of divide up the task. We could divide and conquer in such a way that our personal talents really would shine and drive, and that we could be supportive to each other, and we'd have this amazing product in the end. But this was just so large. I was literally frozen with fear and couldn't even wrap my mind around that. So figuring out how to break that down and how to circumvent my head so that I could still use this known process that worked very well for us and I could be a part of that was huge. And once I got there, I was feeling a lot better.
Yeah, definitely delegating is very important. Letting others do other parts of it and not stressing yourself out trying to do everything. I like, my problem is I want to have a hand and, you know, fix everything and do everything, and you have to learn to, you know, like I said, delegate and let other people do things, especially like when the kids come and help. You gotta let them.
I think for me, I'm the ADD tag half of our team. And so I was so like excited about everything, and I kept bouncing from thing to thing to thing because there were so many things to do. And so like Christina said, luckily we work really well together, and she kind of would ground me and make me actually look at one task at a time. But it just really goes back to that just overwhelming. There's so much to look at, and depending on your personality, you're going to attack that in different ways. So.
And for me, I think finding funding was a big challenge, which leads us to the next question. So what are some viable funding sources for you? How did you fund your con?
Definitely community sponsors, community partners and sponsors. That is probably one of the largest funding sources for us. We do fundraisers. We do restaurant eatery nights, and we do a concession stand and stuff like that. But community partners, I think, have been one of the bigger ways to fund. For just as an example, we partnered with a local test prep company, and they they would help us do like test prep sessions that students could pay a small fee for, and in exchange for in exchange for using our facility to hold those, the test prep company gave all the funds to us for the Comic-Con. So things like that.
Excellent. Okay, so Barbie, did you have anything to add to that?
Well, we did end up charging vendors a little bit of because most places do. Most places do charge vendors a little bit of a reservation, whatever you want to call it, fee for their booths, and they honestly didn't mind. We were worried at first that they were going to mind because we didn't charge the first couple of years, but it just really didn't have a choice with the funding kind of not this year, last year. And so we ended up a bit of a fee, and it worked really well, I think.
Excellent. So being a county library, we wrote it into our budget. So it was a budget line for under education and outreach. So we were able to budget for it, which really helped a lot. But also we were seeking a lot of donations. So we've got donations from lots of our major businesses around, including, Walmart, H-E-B, Sam's. Local car dealerships helped us out. So we were not bashful or shy about asking. We say, hey, can you help us out? And they would either say, we can't this year. But we got quite a few donations, which was really, really nice.
We forget there are also grants out there.
Yeah. Yes, there are lots of grants that you can apply for.
We also charged vendors for I think we called it a table fee. And as Barbie mentioned earlier, is that most cons do, and that our prices were probably under competitive for what they were used to doing, but it did offset some of our expenses. It also helped, I think you asked earlier about making community partnerships. It helped with growing our talent pool too, because one of the things that we offered is that our presenters, and many of them because they were independent comic creators, had the opportunity to either purchase a table to be part of the vending pool, or in exchange, they could do a session. And if they wrote us a session proposal, then we could approve that if it fit with our programming format. And then so that gave us a talent pool to pull from and from for an entire day of working the con. Then they got their table for that.
We basically did the same thing too. Yeah, we did similar. And also, it doesn't have to be money donations. They can donate food, they can donate shirts, they can donate books, they can donate bookmarks. I mean, anything basically that's good to have.
prizes of all kinds. And you know what? I think there's something that we've all kind of danced around during talking about this, but I don't think we've actually stated it, and something that's kind of important. I'm assuming it's the same for your con. Ours is free to attend. I assume yours is as well. And that's something that you really have to take into consideration when you're looking at funding, because we are not making any money off of ticket sales.
Right. And I think that's very, very important to keeping a family-friendly activity or event. You want to reach out and include as many different people as you can, as many different families that you can. So that is super important for, when you're considering being a librarian or a library or a library system, offering this kind of activity for your kids. Okay, so thinking about activities and things, what are some of the challenges that you've come across in programming, whether you're programming for panels or different activities?
Two challenges we came across. The first one is thinking about things like cosplay. You want to be very explicit in what the rules are, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. So thinking of things like replica weapons being on, library property. And so you want to make sure that you state that and that you state it clearly. Also things about, I can't remember how we phrased it, but I think we just said that, all cosplay needed to be family friendly. And so, the attire should be PG-13 at most. So whatever you are cosplaying, your manifestation of it needs to be appropriate for all age levels. But we also ran into, so that was, cosplay is a whole different category and thinking about that. But yeah, you want to think about that and vet that one well. Otherwise,
and that can be a challenge. It can be a challenge.
Also, I think we ran into probably just dynamics of different creators working with each other. So personal dynamics. And it could be a matter of we're putting together panels that have never worked together before. And so making it clear that what they're doing is they're representing whatever the panel format is as a whole, that they're not in competition with each other for spotlight, that they're to kind of a harmonious presentation. And you have to sometimes state that. Otherwise, it could get persnickety. And I think, and sometimes even panels coming together, just, they know each other, they've worked together in the past, and sometimes that is one of the difficulties because those dynamics do know each other from the past and they have a history of how they interact. And sometimes that's not always as productive as you would like.
We also kind of figured out during our first and second cons, the growing pains as you do them. A couple of things we kind of discovered is that many creators are definitely more of a creative type of personality and not necessarily type A. So sometimes you have to be very explicit in the organization for them. And we ran into problems where the planning that they had done may not have matched what we expected. And then another thing this was just a trial and error thing. We kind of figured out with our con that a keynote speaker did not work well. The kids were especially because ours was kinder through 12th, with the younger grades, they aren't going to sit there for an hour listening to somebody speak. It just didn't work well for us. Ours are much better with, and so we ended up canceling our keynote speaker section for the beginning of the day and just putting in more panels. Worked better.
I think something that you don't normally think about too is whenever you have a panelist, make sure that their booth or whatever they set up is next to where they're giving their panel, because they don't always have help. So it's a little, and also that helps with the student helpers too. Make sure y'all have enough to cover those booths, or to at least be there to prevent any losses, and plus they really appreciate that too, and they're giving the panel. Just something about.
So one of the we've had all kinds of different types of panels in our con. One of the most fun was Marvel versus DC. So, and we use the comic book stores to help man those panels, and that was a lot of fun. There can be some real heated debates about those particular topics. But one of the other activities that we especially like to provide was crafts. So, that's a public library kind of thing, like we do crafts. So we had a craft committee that came up with some really great fandom crafts to offer to the kids and the parents, because, oh my gosh, the parents got into it too. So that's a lot of fun to offer crafts. And of course, providing all the materials for the crafts and instructions and people to help man those areas. So folks who had a question had their question answered. And we had some really inventive crafts and crafting times. It was a lot of fun. It was really a lot of fun.
In addition to that, I was just going to say, we all, along the same line, we found that since we do have and we've found that our younger audience is a huge portion of the attendees, or if it's families, they've sometimes got younger siblings in tow. An obstacle course. We always have an obstacle course, and we also try to have some kind of like bounce house or something like that, because kids need to move.
I'm sure that was very helpful. Okay, after your very first con, what kinds of adjustments did you and your team have to make to bump it up or bring it back? Anybody want to share?
Well, I was going to say, I think for us, our biggest thing, so our first con, we actually had a large grant. And so we brought in creators from all over the country. And we had some really big names at ours. But we decided that that especially in our community, that people were getting just as much out of working with our local creators. And in fact, I think sometimes they were getting more out of that, because this was somebody that they could follow, that was local, that they could possibly go see again in another venue. And so we really shifted our focus from, having those awesome, really cool, big name, fly them in from New York type panels, to really bringing in more of our local creators.
Anybody else?
It's along the same lines, but I do think our local creators really appreciated that too. Because one of the things is that so often at cons, it's hard for them to get in, because they are competing with the big houses. They are competing with Marvel and DC, and even, First Second or IDW for that matter, is that those local independent creators, it's hard for them to get the foot in the door. And if they're only ever seen in the artist alley, or maybe some panel on the B stage, if they're really lucky, and that means they got a break. So this was much appreciated.
Excellent. So one of the things that I think I learned after our first con is to have committees and to delegate. The first con, my colleague and I tried to run the whole show. It did not work very well. So I ended up with the stress fracture, blah, blah, blah. It was crazy. But the very next year, we had oodles of committees to help with every single part of it. And they were essential. So, get some like-minded colleagues together and form those committees. I think and you get different ideas from different people. And working with others to try to bring something like this for kids was an excellent. And so we had not only public librarians and children's specialists, but we work very closely with the school librarians and different staff members at school. So it was a great combination working together to make this thing happen. Okay, so what one piece of advice would you give to your past self, knowing what you know now? What do you think is the most important that you could share with yourself?
I think you hit it right on the hit the nail right on the head with what you just said. Because for me, I would say the biggest piece of advice is ask for help. You don't have to do it alone. We are extremely lucky. We have a committee of 12 librarians that work that create our steering committee for our Comic-Con, and we definitely could not do it without all of them.
It does a team, I think. Okay. So did anybody have any expectations that were either met or not met when you were working on your con?
It sounds very simple, but for me, I think especially in the very beginning, the expectation is that we did it. That was a huge success. After you have the first one behind you, you're like, oh my, especially when my first response was I was paralyzed with fear. It's just that, oh my gosh, we did this. We did this and it was amazing. And we had people come and they had a good time. So regardless of what your numbers are, regardless of what, the finances look like at the end, you did it. And so then you can start working on how to improve it from there. We didn't have a lot of expectations beyond kind of what we've talked about over the course of this as to why we chose to do it. But just having had that behind us was huge.
And I think one of the big expectations that we had that I think luckily was false, it was a false expectation, is we thought that this was going to be a hugely expensive thing, and we were really worried about how in the world are we going to fund this, how are we going to make this happen. And like I said, we shifted our focus to using much more local talent, and our con runs for less than $8,000. So I mean, it's something that's doable.
Barbie, did you have something to share about expectations?
Just be ready for them to get bigger than what you even dreamed of, when you imagined, and just be ready. Like you said, just get it done. Just get it done, get it out there, and then improve next year. Because once you get it done, at least you can say, that's it, that's done, I did it, and you can see the effect you have on the kids, and it's just an awesome sight.
And to see the kids, I think just watching the kids and the families, seeing the kids interact and finding other kids that like that particular fandom or like that anime character or something, I think that always brings me joy to see the connections that the kids make and finding others that, are like them. Who knew? Maybe they come from a smaller high school or maybe they're homeschooled and they really don't interact much with other kids their age. And to see all these other kids either dressed like them or going to the same kinds of activities, I think it kind of blows their mind sometimes that, there are others just like me. So, and that's why we did this. That's why we built this con the way it is to get those kids involved and to help them find each other. So I think that's really important. Okay, so last bit of advice. Does anybody have some last bits of advice? Those of us, those out there listening and maybe planning their own cons?
Have a medic on site.
Yes. Yeah, because you never know, right? So the first year we just had a first aid kit, but after that we had local EMS people on site, kind of just to help with the Band-Aids and stuff. We never had an issue really, besides a few Band-Aids that needed to be applied, but you never know. You never know. Anybody else? Well, one thing that we did that I think is a great advice, if you can pull it off, it helps make your event more inclusive and brings people in, is to provide bus transportation. Our county is very big, and it is 40 or 50 miles from one end to the other, and then the same across the width. And we have 8 different school districts, some of them very large, some of them very small. And our foundation, the Library Foundation, sponsored buses. So we sent a bus to each one of these areas and bus kids in. So any of the schools, the high schools especially, that requested a bus, we provided them one. So I think the price was not very high, and it was very well worth it. One of the schools was far, far away and teeny tiny. They have 1,000 kids in the whole district, and they brought a busload of kids. So, and that was something that those kids had never experienced before, and they live so far away, they would never get up into Houston, the city. So I think that really helped make our event inclusive and brought kids from all over the county together. So another thing,
I'm sorry, I was going to say another piece of advice I would give is to not discount your adult comic fans. We're targeting the students, but the relationship that American society has had with comics is problematic and has been since, post-World War II. Not to get into all of that, but it's almost been viewed as this dirty secret that you are a comic fan. And you were talking about the kids being able to see that there are others like me. The other thing they get to see is that there's a whole adult population out there that's like them, that supports them, that is there to embrace them. And I think although we're targeting the kids, we want to remember that and tap into that. And let them know that as Americans, we can stop having this as our shameful secret.
And also, I think it's really important, if you want to do this, do one. They're fun, and reach out to someone who's done one, because we can give you all kinds of tips. We can give you little tricks that we've learned over the years. But if you want to do one, do it, because it is doable.
And it's fun.
It is fun.
It's always fun. I really look forward to the next one, and then I start dreading it as it's getting closer because you're so busy trying to make sure you remembered every little bit. But once I'm there, oh my gosh, it's just so much fun. And just watching the kids is, you see silliness and you see, all kinds of different things. And it's really great seeing the kids interact with your guests and the vendors, your authors and your artists, and really seeing that you can make a life writing books, or you can make a life for yourself, being an artist and talking to those folks, and helping, and they really help the kids understand that it's possible. You just have to work on it, and you have to keep at it. So anybody else have anything they'd like to share? Okay, well, we appreciate everyone out there who is tuning in to our program today. We hope that you will consider having a con if you haven't ever had one. We will include our contact information if you ever have questions. Reach out, because it is a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun, and you get a lot out of it just seeing the kids out there in your communities, whether you're a public librarian or a school librarian. It's worth it for the kids. So just remember that. It's worth it for the kids. So thank you very much for joining us, and we hope to see your con in the news in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.